Hey guys, how's it going? We're on our next recap video. We're just gonna kind of look at what I did on this last week and just the progress that we've made. After that, I'm going to look into instancing and how I use instancing inside of Blender. So it's basically just multiple Blender files and bringing them all into a main Blender scene. After that, we're going to be looking at splines. Splines are pretty self-explanatory, but I wanted to cover it. You'll hear me say it again, but I want to cover it just because it gets asked about a lot. It's usually something that people look at when they're looking between 3D packages, and one of the sticking points for switching. It was one of mine. After that, I'm going to just kind of take a part of the scene and using colors explain to you how I would approach the mindset of how I unwrap that scene. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, before we get into the recap, I just want to ask a quick question. Do you guys, and let me know in the comments below, do you guys like the webcam here and the Pureref file here? Or do you want to see more of like, if I hide the Pureref and the webcam and we go to more of the traditional layout so that you see more of the scene? Let me know in the comments and we can adapt that going forward. Cool. So let me just bring these all back. And the webcam. Okay, so this is the scene as it sits as of Wednesday. I went in and started instancing into other Blender files and bringing back in here through a link the signs. So you can see the signs in the back here. Really starting to think about how much detail is going to be overlapping things and what stuff looks like in the distance. I need to, where is it? I built a ladder here. That's just kind of like a block out ladder that I need to go and finish up, actually build. The other thing to think about too that came up on stream is the buildings in the distance, and having like fire escapes was a suggestion that you guys had made, and it's definitely something we're gonna need if we want to really kind of add some more silhouette difference and shape detail to the buildings in the distance. I ended up bringing this building up. That way we could have a little bit more signs kind of overlapping each other in the distance. For example, like that one doesn't need to be there. It's the old blockout one. And it's just trying to get a sense of like how many signs are visible there and how much layering happens. So yeah, that's where we're at. Let's talk about instancing, huh? So I call it instancing, but I believe in Blender it's just called linking. So if you go file, there's linking and appending. Linking is like everything's clustered together. You can't really edit anything in that asset. So for example, if I select this one and I hit tab, I can't edit like you can with, say, this spline or like this geometry. You can go to vertex face edge mode. When it's linked, it's literally pulling it from the other file, just like you would expect with instancing. Whereas with append, it looks like it's just dropping it into the scene. And as far as I can tell, and Lucas can probably correct us in the comments below if we're wrong, that it's just brought in from the other file, almost like importing. So you can import a collection to work on or work from. So I'm going to just kind of go through how I've set that up or how I'm utilizing it. So for example, we have all these signs, right? And these are all instanced or linked in. The way to tell is there's no, like if I click this, you see this is text. If I make a cube, the cube is object data properties. It's a cube symbol, whereas this one is just an empty. So, and you can't edit it. But let's go through the workflow. So I've got this box here. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. I just want to let's bevel this side, and then we'll take this face and we'll inset and then extrude. And let's say this is the object we want, right? So I'll just Control C to copy it, and then I'll make a new Blender scene. Or in this case, I'll just go to the sign scene. So I'll save that. So here's the sign scene or sign Blender file. And then I'll just go over here, make a new collection, and just call it like box test, and then paste. So if you see, I pasted the object over here, or it's in the position that it was in the other Blender file. But of course, it's way over there, and you're going to need it at the origin, because when you link a collection from this scene, it's going to use the origin of this Blender file as the like where the pivot is, basically. So I talked about this on stream as well. So if you press N, you'll see you've got location data. If I rotate randomly and then scale it, you can see you get all this information. You can press backspace on these and it'll reset them. Or you can, the hotkey for moving or grab is G, R to rotate, right? And S for scale. If you hold down Alt when you press those, it's the same as zeroing these out. So if you don't have this window up, you can Alt S, Alt R, and for example, Alt G brings it back to the origin. So now it's here. Now the collection that it's in is called box test, so you can name this whatever you want, and maybe you need like, we'll look at that after I bring this in. So let's just save it. This radial menu, by the way, you'll see it's got link, append, and open recent. This is all machine tools, which you can, it's all here. It's just, it's more readily available. So I can just Control S, go to the right, Control S, most recent, block out, and now I'm back in the scene. Now, if I select this object and Shift S to move the 3D cursor to selected, you'll see it goes to the pivot there. Now if I Control S and link, if I go up a few here, you'll see here's the props large sign gym that I have all of that I just put that object in. If you go in there, you can see that you have collections, and you'll notice also that you can link materials. So keep that in mind. But if you go to collection, you can see we got box test, and I just double click that. And now here's our box test. And you'll know because it's got a locator, which I believe extras will show you the locator. Yeah, so the locator's inside. So workflow-wise, I like to go to the viewport display in the object properties and just Control-C on that color and paste it. So all of the objects that I know are instanced or linked have a color to them. That way I can get a better understanding of what's linked and what's unique to the Blender file. So if I can delete that one, so now I have this one, right? I can save, and then I can open recent, go back to the other scene, and I'm like, oh, okay, maybe, oh, what am I doing here? Maybe I want this to be, maybe I want to duplicate this detail and rotate it so it's like this. And maybe that detail is going to be there. If I save and then go back to the blockout scene, you'll see it's updated. And the really cool part about that, let me go back to the other file, is it's looking at the collection. So you don't have to have everything merged together. So for example, I could go faces. Let's just select this one, press P and enter to separate, separate it. And you'll see they're two separate objects. And then when I save and I go back to the other scene, it's still one collection. So super, super handy. Now, with that said, if I'm toggling my collections on and off with the numbers keys, you can see here's the scene with the collections. And if I just do the collections, you can see how many collections I actually have already. So the idea is I can texture these, and I can just texture one of them and the other one will be good to go. But yeah, that's collections and how I'm using instancing or linked Blender files. Okay, now we're gonna look at splines. I freaking love splines in Blender. I haven't gone too deep in them other than just using them for cable management and kind of like trying to simulate where cables are going to be. A lot of the times my cables are pretty simple, so they don't really need all the details if you needed to extrude like a pattern across them in the geometry. So let's just grab some stuff here. Yeah, this should be good. So we have these guys, which maybe I want to connect to this thing or have cables go around the building. First, let's use the 3D cursor. So if I hold Shift right click and drop the 3D cursor there, I'm just gonna forgot the input view. I don't know if this is helpful to you guys. Wasn't on the other videos, but we'll have that on from now on. If I forget, I forget. So Shift right click moves the 3D cursor around, and I'm having it kind of snap to the surface of the normal that it's on. It's just aligning to the normal of the surface that I click on, which is really handy. To do that really fast, go to Preferences, because it's not like that by default. So you could just go to, where are we at here? Key Maps, type in 3D cursor, 3D view, click this little arrow, and then I think by default it's view. So it's going to treat your camera view as the normal direction. So whenever you would shift right click, it would point right at you. But you want it to point off of the normal of what you shift right clicked on. So you just want to set that to geometry, and then you're good to go. And now it should behave like this. So let's just move this cursor out here for a little while, and let's just go Shift A. We'll go Curve and Bezier. Curve. You go to Edit Mode or hit Tab. Mine's a radial menu from Machine Tools. So some things to keep in mind. You press G, you move these around. If you select the handles, it's G as well. So you can think about these like they're verts. You can think about this center point as the origin of these 2 points. So if you grab one of these and press Scale, it will scale to that center, to its parent vertex or parent point on the curve. Really useful if you need to keep the angle, but you want to pinch the amount, the rate at which the curve is being influenced. So for example, if we have this curve, it's got 2 points. We're going to go to the object data, and we're just going to add a depth in the bevel drop down here. So the depth is, let's do something like that. Let's give it maybe go for a darker color so it's easier to look at. So if we go to edit, you can see you can still move these around. I think, yeah, so as of 2.83, you can extrude between 2 points, which is really interesting. Right now, I think it's super useful, by the way. But like, so if you go to top view, a lot of the times you'll see me moving these around in specific axes views, or like top, side. So one thing I also want to state is you can see I'm doing box select to move these around and then pressing G. The one I really, really like is if you press W enough, you get to this one, which is the tweak setting. It's just going W until you get to the little arrow with the move as well. So basically it will grab what's closest to your cursor when you click and just automatically activate the grab. So you can just move stuff around pretty easily. If you select 2 points, right click and press S, you'll subdivide, which is really nice. And now in combination with the new extrude between 2 points, you can select both of these and press E and get 2 right off the bat if you need. So let's say this is pinching too much. This is where I would suggest using the selecting this point and just pressing S, because then you'll scale in towards the point that the curve is paying attention to. So you're basically just controlling the curve fall off at that point via handle scaling to the original point on the spline. So that's all really handy. Now, the next thing that I usually do is I like to have a default thickness that works for the scale of stuff that I'm working with. So if you rotate this around and just kind of get this into place where you can see it, you're like, okay, yeah, that's too thick probably. So you can scale this. If you hold down shift, you can slow down the rate at which it scales. It's like more minute or incremental changes, smaller increments. So we'll just scale that down until we're happy with it. I'm like, cool. Now, snapping all of this together can be a pain, right? Just gonna scale these down. Let's see here. So you move this around. What I like to do is set face snapping, and you can turn it on if you're going to be doing like an overall snapping of everything, or you can drag, and when you tap control, it'll temporarily turn snapping on. It'll be like when you hold down control, it turns this on. So you can just drag this around, hold control when you need, and it will just, you can see it just kind of brings stuff forward. You're like, all right, I'm going to scale it in. It also works for the handles, so the handles can snap to a face, which is really, really useful. So see, I don't have to try and rotate this to get this to look right. I can just hold down control and it'll snap into place. So you can see already we're looking pretty good as far as getting this to look right, or like position wise. You'll see I'll rotate these and just kind of try and get like get the angle right so it looks like it's going into that box. So with that, let me just add another point here. When you get into corner areas like this, you're going to want to like have two control points kind of close to the curve. That way it wraps around nicely. The other thing is you'll notice that the point is it's snapping to the face, and there's not really, the point's snapping to the face, which means it's halfway in the wall. So you can do some offsetting in here like this, but that all requires that the spline is positioned with the normal direction facing flow-wise this way. So like, for example, where are we at here? Face orientation. No, where is it? Oh, what am I doing? I think you need to be in edit mode for the, yeah, here it is. Handles. So in 2.9, the handles are going to be invisible unless you select the specific point, or you can still have them on like they are currently. So I'm going to just turn the normals on so you can see what direction they're going. So right now they're flowing this direction. So it's going to offset one way or the other based on that direction. So if it was flowing the other way, that offset would have pushed it more into the wall, and then in that case you would need to offset the other direction. So just keep that in mind if you're trying to work on it in that way. But yeah, let's turn these handles off, or the normals. And I want to show you some of the stuff that I really like about how this works. So you can Shift D to duplicate a spline, right? Let's fix these the origins of these. And in that case, they're separate, which is good if you want to change your depths on these. If you are in edit mode and you duplicate, it still works, which is really, really nice. So I could technically just offset, I could dupe and offset this way, then deselect this one and these guys, and then just move this up, deselect these, and then move this out this way. And I now technically have the same spline, but in the same object, and I can move these around to then break up where things are at. So we're like, all right, cool. Just kind of move these around and just get them the way I want. So that's pretty cool. Now, if you have a bunch of these, Also, if you select these and press Control J, it will, you can see this one shrinks because it's taking on the properties of the last selected or the active selected mesh. So if I select this one and then Control J, it will merge them together. But if I select this one and then press Control J, they all become one. They'll imitate the last one. Now, with the thickness, maybe I want that one to be thick, but I want them all in the same mesh. So what I can do is actually go in, and if I press L to select all within this container, you can press scale, but you can alt scale, which if I press N here, you can see this is the median or the mean radius. So if I alt S, you can see that value. It's basically like a modifier on top of the original depth. So like if I turn this up, this one, it's going to be equal plus the multiplied by whatever this rate is, or additive. I think that's additive. Yeah, so you could technically grab some of these and just change the thickness in some parts of the pipes as well, which is kind of interesting. Could be really nice if you're blocking out not cables and stuff, but maybe blocking out more like roots and whatnot. But yeah, that's Splines, and that's how I've been playing around with them. If you have any questions about them, just drop them in the comments below and I'll get back to you. So I got a question in the last recap video about how I would be unwrapping all this stuff, because it seems like, oh man, there's so many things that you're building. Like, how are you not going to lose your mind when you start unwrapping things? And like, I totally get it, because you can get some fatigue when it's like, oh, there's all these things to unwrap. So I just kind of want to show how I would approach unwrapping things in here. And one of the biggest things is the linking that I described earlier in this video. That's like super useful for reuse. So you always want to think about reuse. So anything that you unwrap, remember that it's been unwrapped. So if you use it again, you're saving yourself unwrapping something again, right? So for example, if I go and switch this to object color, so these teal ones, these are the ones that are linked from other Blender files, right? So these little AC units or whatever they'll be, these are the same. So that's one object. I'm gonna save this so I can just change the color on these things. So let's make that like this. Copy, paste, there we go. So that would be a unique unwrap that's either baked or is built with masks and all that. These guys, this is the giant trash bins. These are all the same asset as well. So I'd probably say that that's its own. I only have to unwrap that and texture it once. It'll probably be a combination of tileable materials and masks to kind of add dirt and grime where I want. And then probably another material where I've placed stickers and decals on it where I want inside of the other Blender file, so that they're all kind of parented together. Now, with the trash piles, I think right now I have 3 trash pile types. So one of them is the long one, and there's a corner one, and then like a convex and a concave. So the corner, this is like the convex, and then I have a concave trash pile as well. So all the debris that's used on the trash pile, I would like to reuse, right? So it's either props that are going to be placed individually, or they're going to be placed inside of these over and over again anyways. So all of the props in here should be unwrapped. Probably things like this container here and the cans they'll be from a set that I'm already going to be building. So those will be UV'd anyways, and I'll just kind of scatter them throughout. The pile under here will probably be a trash tileable material with a fall off using height map to like alpha cut out the edge. And then just to break up that edge and really mask the fact that it's geometry is placing all of these props and just kind of scattering it enough to mask that look. So it's more about hiding that look, or that covering it up and giving it the illusion that it's a pile of trash. Then there's these guys. So once I make one of these, all of the trash piles should basically be done, and it's more about like authoring the way they're propped inside of their own instance. These splines or cables will probably just have a tileable material on them. So we can probably just give that like an orange color. So that'll just have a tileable material on it. I can probably use the same material, or if I want like a more metal type of material for these guys, these would just be auto unwrapped. And then these will also be in their own Blender file, so only make it once. So I'm just going to place them. They'll already be unwrapped. And so those guys will be good. Let me just copy that. And it's a pain to paste these all. I'm going to do it anyways because I want you to be able to see. They're so small. I love this pasting on top of the input and not having to, it just does it. It's super nice. This guy I think is obsolete now. I think it's been replaced by this one, which I can move over here and just, let's snap to face and then Alt R to reset the rotation. And we'll just kind of put this like that and just delete that. So you can see reuse. It's really important. And use a different angle so you're not always seeing the same side when it makes sense. You just want to try and get away from duplicate looks. This little piece here, I might make a gem or another Blender file that's got a couple generic box shapes that I can just have a tileable material on that are good to go. When I need to texture under this, it'll probably be a decal or a mask for the whole wall. So let's look at the rest of these, and then I'll get to those. And take these and just give them some purple. So okay, these pipes. So I've got a corner, a long piece, this like weird kind of L, this, I don't know what you would call it, an S bend. And then I think that's it for, at least for this set. There's a few other pieces, like there's a T piece and whatnot. Actually, if I just do this and we'll go to so you can see the power of props gem collection, 1 meter pipe, cap. Let's do that. Oh, these are the different pipes. So I've got a shorter one and then a cap, and then there's a T pipe. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then there are 5, and then the T pipe piece. Let me see if I can find that pipe. T pipe. There it is. So if I bring this over here and this piece over here, it's just these pieces. So once I've textured all of these, I have a whole kit of pipes that I can use and place around. These will probably be tileable materials with masks to break up the surfaces. So each one of these will have a unique mask, but they'll all probably be using the same albedo, roughness, and normal. Yeah, so let's delete those. So that's taken care of. And then this guy will, again, be a lot of reusable tileable materials and then masks to show where like rust might be. The rust will be its own material. And I'll just interpolate or alert between the two based off of that mask that I'm talking about. These guys will probably be a unique texture or an atlas of numbers or letters on a single texture sheet that I can just reuse and stamp around. And then that would be that guy handled. Now with this building, this is probably where you're starting to ask more questions, right? Like, how do you, like, what is this even supposed to, how do you handle that? We just do this so we get a better sense of things. Yeah, so this building, I will probably take these, make one of these, and then dupe it across, like make a bunch of them. So this will be instanced and be a much more unique visually and have like a pattern to it or something. Now, the top here and the walls, this is where like you start getting into the position where I would just unique unwrap these walls and then set the textile density correct to a tileable brick material, for example, and then just place that. In another UV set, I would probably take these walls, pack it in a 0 to 1, and then paint where like either dripping goes or where gunky, just breaking up the material so it's not just one tileable surface. You can use that mask to break up the roughness. You can use it to shift the values or saturation in the albedo. You can use that to put in baked ambient occlusion if you want and use that in the material in whatever way you would like. And this top piece would probably be in that same pack, so they would use the same mask as well. Now, for the windows, these will probably be a separate material that I'll use for windows, or I might just make a window that fits inside of another Blender file, instance them in, and just kind of place it inside of that window frame. This sidewalk is going to be tileable materials, and then I'll break it up in ways similar to how I was talking about with this building. But yeah, a little long-winded, but hopefully that helps explain how I would approach that stuff. It's actually not that much when you think about it, because like if I open the scene again without saving it, so I get the colors back and then unhide everything, you can see like this color for me means that it's going to be unique to the Blender scene. So this will give you a pretty good idea. So you can make sense out of that, right? So once I make this one, once I make these, where's the corner one? Here's the corner one. Once I make the corner one, then I'll have most of the ground propping kind of textured, right? Then it's like, oh, I need to do the barrel, the table, and a single chair. And that should all naturally just start to fill the scene. And rather quickly as well. See, here's another piece that I would treat similar to this one. But yeah, I could keep going, but I think that gives you an idea of how I would approach the unwrapping. If you have more questions, just throw them in the comments below, and maybe I'll cover it in one of these videos or on the stream. But yeah, thank you for tuning in. That's the end of this recap video. And I'll see you next week if there's something to recap on, or the week after. The main goal with these videos is to make sure that you know where we're at in the scene. I can answer questions with what you guys ask in the comments more directly. It's easier to find stuff and learn stuff from these videos than the 2-hour videos. And yeah, whenever I have 2 to 3 things that I feel like I could cover, like splines, for example, or linking between Blender files, then I can do those as segments on the end of it. So the idea is a recap with 2 to 3 segments on the end for information. Anywho, thanks for hanging out. I will see you guys on the next stream.